And what it means for us.
Hi everyone, my name is Robin. It's Lucy. We're students at the U of O's graduate program and Masters in Public Administration. We're currently working with the River Road Parks and Recreation District to help them update a strategic plan. To do that, we're doing surveys, community members, and focus groups. So we're going to have some of the QR codes for survey if interested in giving the Parks District information about what you'd like to see in the Parks District, what they're doing. This is great. If you would like to be in a focus group, we would love that because the things from here is really involved in that community, and we would love your feedback. Lucy's going to be in the back of the room at the end of the meeting. If you think you might be interested, come talk to her. She'll get your email and get some information about what that focus group looks like, when it's going to be, and any other information. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And why don't you speak up at the end of the meeting to remind us?
Okay. Yes, yeah, I'll wave at everybody and I'll park myself at the front door so you can talk to me. But there'll be some signing in happening too. So.
Thank you. That's great. And we're appreciate you doing it.
Some flyers over here for a house concert series. A lot of touring musicians come to the River Road area and play house concerts. So there's several coming up. And a climate cafe where we talk about climate change and how it's affected us as community members and internal emphasis shot as well. These are
Excellent. Excellent. And part of the benefit of that is that Mike offers these on a sliding scale for the $10 or $15 that helps to raise musicians' transportation expenses. So tell your friends. Thank you. Can you hear me at home?
no.
Really? I gotta speak louder. I know. Okay, I'll speak loudly. How's this?
Jolene says she has an
Good. Jolene, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's much better, Terry. There's a certain amount of echo and feedback, and it's pretty hard to understand.
Okay. We'll
Thank
just
you.
put it this way.
So my
And I'll stand
announcement,
right in front of our presenters when they're talking about Cascadia.
yeah, I want to hear all that. Thank you. So my announcement has to do with the backpack project for River Road Elementary School. There was an announcement in the recent newsletter if you all want to reference that, but it's a go, and the first backpacks are going home for kids at El Camino River Road Elementary on March 19th. We're having a volunteer organizing meeting this coming Friday morning at 9:30. If anyone wants to participate, they could talk to Terry or Claire or send a note in the chat, and I will make sure we get in touch with you. It could be just maybe 2 hours of commitment to help with organizing the packs, doing some shopping, or maybe doing delivery to the school. So pretty straightforward, but the more people, the better. So thank you. Yeah.
So these are the people that we were making food baskets
Yes.
for before Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so for children in need.
Right. Yes. Right.
Okay.
So many thanks. Yeah. Children, families in need, especially to cover time over spring break or time over weekends when the school lunch programs aren't available. Yeah. So many
Yes.
thanks to all of you for contributing in November and December. That food drive was stupendous. And yeah, this is going to be hopefully a monthly or maybe more often event, but we're just starting slow. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jolene. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you. And the volume is much better. Thanks.
date, time, and place.
Jolene, would you please repeat the date, time, and place of the meeting coming up?
Oh, sure. So let's see.
Or is it for
Oh.
the actual project? Maybe you gave the date.
Yeah, the date is March 19th is the date
March
of
19th.
distribution. So if you
Okay.
want to know more, the meeting is going to be this Friday at Elizabeth's house on Merrow. But if you want to let Claire or Terry at the meeting or me in the chat know, we'll get in touch with you. Okay?
That's great.
Sound good? Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, any other announcements? Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cedar.
I
A group
need
of
your
neighbors
voice.
and I in the area who've been concerned about the action of ICE locally in Minneapolis and across the country are getting together to do a whistle kit making party. So if anyone is interested in that, I have little leaflets that I can hand out to you. And we'd like to just brainstorm as a community on this neighborhood specifically and figure out what steps can be taken to defend our neighbors.
Good. Did you say you're having a whistle kit party?
Yeah.
Okay, when will that be?
So it's March 5th at 7 p.m.
Just, 3 days, like Friday
Yeah, just a few days. from now.
at 7 p.m. And where will that be?
It's actually going to be at one of our houses, which we didn't feel comfortable broadcasting, but if you want to come get one of these, I can guess.
That's great. That's great. Boy, in that world, it's a tough balancing act because everything I've ever been taught is like communicate, open communication. And then suddenly there's risk to being that way. But thank you. Anything else? Yes, Jan.
Would like for everybody to know that on April the 12th, which is a Sunday, RRCO and some friends are going to be putting on a really super wonderful event at 255 Maxwell. That's the former Our Redeemer Lutheran Church. It's not the church anymore, they've closed, but the space is still there. But we're going to have what we're calling a spring into garden activation. And we want to encourage people to start growing food in the neighborhood. So we're going to have some giveaway little starter garden kit, like some containers with soil and seeds that especially for new people who haven't had a garden before, they can grow spinach, tomatoes, squash, whatever they like. We'll have a lot of seeds available too. So that is Sunday, the 12th, starting at noon and going until 4. And then part of that also, there'll be a lot of community organizations, most of them kind of food production oriented. So there's going to be a real great opportunity for people to learn about different organizations in Eugene that are food oriented for the idea of building a more robust Southern Willamette Valley food system. So there'll be tables with community organizations and you can meet people and might want to get involved with something. So it's kind of two events in one, and then there'll be a potluck at the end. So the next RRCO monthly e-newsletter will have more information about this, and I'll also write something up on that whiteboard too. I'll write the date on that whiteboard as well.
Okay, good.
And invite friends, encourage friends who don't have a garden, to participate in this.
Besides, this man came and told us about, where.
Yes, they're going to be building low-income housing there.
Housing and it's a community garden.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that church, right?
Yes.
Okay, on the north side.
Here's your side of a small house, tiny eco village in maybe 4 years or so. But there's already a nice garden there too. So
Jen,
a bunch
tell
of
us again the date.
organizations.
Tell us again the date.
April 12th,
Okay.
a Sunday. I'll write it on the board over there.
Yes, I was thinking for the folks at home. Mike?
One more thing, we have community ecstatic dance every Sunday morning. Have that right now in inside outside backyard, but we're soon moving back to the river on Mary Lane, down at the river, and we'll be dancing out in the outdoors every Sunday from 11 to 1.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. I'd like to introduce Jensina Hawkins to you too. Jensina, do you want to stand up? I mean, would you please, even if you don't want to? Jensina chairs the neighborhood leaders. And she's gone around visiting.
Yes, I'm touring like a rock star. So I am Jensina Hawkins, and there are 23 neighborhood associations in the city of Eugene, 23 that are formally recognized. 21 of them are active, and those 21 have a delegate that gets sent to Neighborhood Leaders Council. Jason Alessino and I are co-chairs of Neighborhood Leaders Council. We are very fortunate to have Beth Giroux on our steering committee, so that helps us set our executive meetings, our agendas, some of the topics that we have. Last month, we actually had a fantastic topic talking about ICE and how we can mobilize and inform our neighborhoods to protect the residents. We had Guadalupe Quinn that came and presented, as well as Carmen Urbina from 4J. Brain fart, it happens. And so, yes, I am going around to the different neighborhood meetings. My goal is to make at least one of them, at least one of each of the neighborhood meetings this year. I am currently chair of Churchill area neighbors over in Southwest Eugene. And so if you have any questions about Neighborhood Leaders Council, also other people, other members of the neighborhoods besides the neighborhood delegate are able to come. Our meetings are also open to the public. I actually just started a new thing where we will have updates from elected officials. So last month we had a 15-minute update from County Commissioner Heather Buck. And so we are doing our best to get very relevant and timely topics out to the community. We do work very closely with the City of Eugene, and it's a really great place for the neighborhood leaders to come together and sometimes be able to see if we're actually comparing apples to apples, or if we've got some oranges, or if we have a pistachio in the fruit basket somewhere. And if you have any questions about NLC, ask Beth.
Thank you, Jensina. Appreciate you being here. Okay, now I will hand this over to Laura Shu, who's going to facilitate the rest of the meetings.
Sorry about a little bit of disorganization as we started. Claire is not feeling well tonight, and she's the keeper of the key, so it took us a little bit. The next part of our meeting is elections for the board of the River Road Community Organization. As many of you know, without the board, the organization doesn't really exist. You know, we need the board to plan and facilitate activities. Community members are heavily involved, you know, along with us in that. We have a 7-member board, and 3 of the positions are open tonight. Serving on the board requires a commitment to attend these community meetings once a month, the board meetings the second Monday of each month at the same time. And then depending on your interests and your available time, there's an opportunity to get involved in projects that the board is working on. Let's see. You don't need experienced board members. You don't have to have served on a corporate board. Really, board members are our neighbors who have an interest in the health of the community and want to volunteer to do their part and help make it happen. I'm going to take the nominations forward in 2 steps. And then once I have the nominations, then I'll ask people to talk for up to a couple minutes, and I'll tell you more about that. First, 2 out of the 3 positions are expiring terms of Terry Morton and where did Jan go? Jan Spencer. So I'd like to know from Terry and Jan, would you be interested in nominating yourselves to serve another term on the board? Terry says yes.
We'll wait and see if there are other candidates, but I can look forward to it.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so now I'm interested in people you all self-nominating yourselves or nominating a neighbor, as long as they're okay with it.
We have seen arm twisting in the past.
Yes, yeah, we may get down to that. So who's interested in serving on the board this time? It's a 2-year term.
Apparently I'm not even on the list, so I can't even vote, so you can't nominate me.
But you have to have been to a meeting in the past year and be a River Road resident or a worker in River Road. Question?
I nominate Nancy.
I already tried that. I tried that.
If 3 people nominate you, I think that's what you have to say. They said, please. Come on, Nancy. Oh,
Great. Yeah, when I came to the annual meeting last year, I had no intention of serving on the board either.
Showing especially interested.
Yeah. Okay, who else would like to serve on the board?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Besides going to meetings, I would assume that you have to sit and listen to people quietly and take notes.
Well, the secretary, the board elects a secretary to take notes, a treasurer, and 2 co-chairs as well.
Okay.
Lynn, you look like you're thinking hard.
It's my first meeting.
Stop pointing at me.
I can ask them to nominate. Yeah.
I might do it again. But, it hasn't been many years since the last time I was on.
It would be a seamless transition.
I'm not eligible. Okay. I nominate Jan. Jan is
Been on the board a long time.
he's Mr. Sustainability and he is consistent. But, what they're good at it, really.
I need to stay out of it. I was going to say you, but. Okay, okay. All right, so we have 3 nominees and 3 positions. Do we need to vote or should we just do this by hands? Okay. So how many are in favor of Terry Morton being elected to the board? Raise your hand if you're a River Road resident. Okay. Anybody? I don't need to know that. It's
Speak to me afterwards.
okay. And Nancy Buff, well, I'm sorry. I forgot the part where people introduce themselves. I think you should at least know who, yeah. So we already elected Terry, so we'll skip her. Would you like to speak?
Oh,
Yeah, just a couple minutes.
Terry Morton, 6 years in Eugene, 30 years in Klamath Falls, 9 years in Tanzania in between. And I worked with local nonprofits in Tanzania. And that was also my last 20 years in Klamath Falls was organization development consulting. I spend a lot of time with immigrants these days. And I'm also working with a board here that has a school in Kenya, helping them with financial stuff. And I'm the treasurer of the board this year, and I was secretary the last 2.
Thank you, Terry. Nancy. Take this.
Hi, I guess I come to too many meetings.
you're so consistent, committed.
Nancy Buffum, I live at Riversong Co-housing at the end of Oakley Lane. And I've been living there since 2022 when it opened. I am on the active transportation committee for Eugene, City of Eugene, and I'm on the transportation committee of RRCO. And I've been active on the river celebration, and I'm around a lot.
Thank you.
And for HOA president of the community.
Yeah, and I've been an HOA president and I have a nonprofit background.
Jim?
I've been on the board probably for 20 of the last 25 years. And it's totally awesome experience. When I moved into River Road 25 years ago, I didn't know what a neighborhood association is. So it's been a wonderful experience. My particular interest is kind of a paradigm shift. I'm not shy about it, moving beyond capitalism and the consumer culture. That's what I'm interested in. So a lot of what RRCO does kind of fits into the bigger picture of building community. So I think that's one of the most wonderful tools we have here is the neighborhood association. So we can come together like this and learn about the issues and make where we live a better place.
Okay, so all River Roaders in favor of electing Nancy Buffum to the board, raise your hands. Yes. Great. And Jan Spencer, or electing Jan Spencer to the board. All right, well, welcome to the three of you and thank you for volunteering to do it. Kind of volunteering. All right, so now we come to the main program tonight, which is on earthquake preparedness. We've revived RRCO's emergency prep team, and this is our first activity. I want to just introduce other members of the team. Not everybody's here tonight, but we have Adrian Orozco. Is Misty here? I don't see Misty. How about Bob Blanchard? And Johanna? No, okay. How many of you noticed in your mailing this month that you got this great Help OK disaster response sign? So this was Adrian's idea to include it in the mailing to over 6,000 homes. So thank you, Adrian. Yes. Yeah. All right, show of hands. How many of you are visiting from another neighborhood? Okay. Well, welcome. Rip, no, I already did that. Sorry. We have a few folks in the audience from the larger emergency prep community. I'll just introduce you to. We have Don Scott and Robert Sproul from Ready Northwest Eugene, which is the collaboration of Bethel, Santa Clara, and River Road emergency prep. River Road has not been pulling our weight up until now, but we'll do what we can going forward. We have Lori Stein. Why don't you tell us who you are?
You know, it's not much to say. I am a member of CERT, which is a Community Emergency Response Team. Went to CERT training, which will be coming up pretty soon. So I want all of the commissioners. As I got involved in CERT, I became involved in what's called EMCOM, which is Emergency Communications. And the former Northwest Eugene CERT coordinator, Ed Farron, who used to come to these meetings, he decided to bow out and he was looking for a replacement. And he asked me, would you mind taking my place? And I said, yeah, but not knowing what he did. So I am still in the process of learning how to fill that particular role. I've been going to steering committee meetings, and I'm looking to be ready, trained, so I can do some trainings locally.
Great.
So, and what Andy Davis, who's the emergency communications guy, and Robert's been involved in this, is to have some people locally that might like to go through disaster, what we call damage assessment teams, and help with that and go through some, which involves emergency communications. So
Great.
I need to get my feet wet.
Well,
I'm
welcome.
hoping
Robert.
everybody will help.
Just want, I looked at, some of the ham websites and you can look up hams and there's dots all over the Eugene area. But it's amazing how few actually are accident in public. Do we have any other hams here tonight?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm from the friendly neighborhood. Adrian.
Yep. Thank you. Anybody else that's here from the wider emergency prep community that I have not introduced? Yes.
Yeah, so, Craig Sherry, so I'm in the friendly neighborhood and also members of all the ETM groups. So we have a quite active group that does monthly exercise in the friendly neighborhood where we get about 50 or 18 people with their little apparatus radios on second Sunday for half an hour, and then some people doing a little ham thing after that. So monthly thing, and it's been going pretty steadily for about 5 years now. So
Great. Yeah.
it's good to have kind of a low bird entry thing with the apparatus walkie-talkies, and we're kind of starting to look at the feasibility of the 20-year-old don't talk to people on the phone. There's a new stuff called mesh castic and mesh core that are little autonomous radios that can send text messages for your phone and everything else. Yeah. So we're gonna start looking to see if how that might fit into the structure of things.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Our two guest speakers tonight are Althea Sullivan and Autumn Lukens. Is Autumn here? Oh, okay. Autumn is a recent grad at the University of Oregon and is the communications and policy specialist for the Oregon Hazards Lab at the University of Oregon. So she's going to talk tonight about the Cascadia risk. And then we'll have Althea Sullivan in the back here, who's the acting emergency manager for the City of Eugene, talk about how to prepare for such a big event. So Autumn, I'll turn it over to you. Let's come up here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You okay holding this? Yeah. Okay. I project. I'll put it right there.
I promise I can be loud enough that everyone can hear me. And just, they can let me know if they cannot. Maybe I'll put it, yeah, right.
There we go.
Okay. And then once we get it up. Hi, everyone. My name is Autumn. I'm here with the Oregon Hazards Lab. We're a research lab at the University of Oregon that focuses on Oregon's natural hazards, the two largest being earthquakes and wildfires. So once we get that presentation ready to go, I can get started. What's your last name again? Lukens. Lukens. Thank you. Yes. Is this okay? You just scroll down. Perfect. Okay. So we are in the realm of emergency management and preparedness. So before I get started, I'm just going to do a little housekeeping. I'm wondering if there's a way to figure. But in case of emergency, please find your nearest emergency exit. And in case of an earthquake, drop, cover, hold on. All right. There we go. And if you have different mobility needs, there are different ways that you can drop, cover, and hold on. So, like I said, I'm with the Oregon Hazards Lab. We use science, technology, and community engagement to understand, detect, and mitigate multi-hazards within the Pacific Northwest in the Earth Sciences Department. So, like I said, Oregon has two really large hazards, the ones that happen a little bit more frequently, wildfires, and the ones that maybe don't happen as frequently but are going to be catastrophic, which would be the Cascadia Subduction Zone event, the big one. I'm going to talk a little bit about our seismic sensors. Sorry, it's cutting out the last little bit of that.
To adjust it so that it won't cover your screen.
Sure.
You can do it. I can't do it. You can do it.
Cool. So if you didn't know, and I hope you do, we live in the Cascadia Subduction Zone, which is where two plates meet. So we have the Juan de Fuca plate, which is on the ocean on the left side, and then we have the North American plate, which is the ground that you're standing on here now. It's about 300 miles off the shore of where these two plates are meeting, and one of them is more dense than the other, and it's going under. The Juan de Fuca plate is going under the North American plate. And when tension builds up over a long period of time with that, eventually it's going to go down and then it's going to snap. And that's when we're going to have an earthquake. The last one that we had was in 1700. They happen every 300 to 500 years. It had a 9.0 earthquake, and there was a 100-foot tsunami wave off the coast of Oregon. The shoreline dropped about 70 feet. It was very catastrophic. We know that this earthquake happened because of the ghost forest in Northwest Oregon, and a ghost tsunami that came to Japan. And they were like, where was the earthquake from this tsunami? And fun fact, tsunami waves travel about as fast as earthquakes do, or tsunami waves travel as fast as airplanes do. So we have the exact date. It was January 26, 1700, when the last Cascadia Subduction Zone earthquake happened. And if you do any quick math, that means that we are 326 years since that last earthquake happened. So we are in that 300 to 500 year interval period. Scientists think that there will be an 8.7 to a 9.2 magnitude earthquake within the next 50 years with a 16 to 22% chance. So those are betting odds. Maybe not great betting odds, but they're betting odds. So what we do at the lab, we have seismic sites all across the states. We have over 270 sites in Oregon, and they have different kinds of sensors in them. We have short form sensors, which is location and magnitude of small regional earthquakes. So that could be a crustal earthquake, which is not the same as a subduction zone earthquake. And then we have our broadband sensors, which record waveforms for really large earthquakes and then very distant earthquakes. So when there was the earthquake that happened in Russia over the summer, all of our seismic sensors were able to pick up on that. If you can look at the bottom image there, that is of one of our sites, and the little white circle around it is where the actual sensor lies. It's about 10 feet in the ground. If you ever come up on one of these places, please do not dig around it. You won't cause an earthquake, but you might get in the way of the research that's going on behind it. And on the right side, a little bit hard to see, but that's the map of Eugene and all of the earthquake sensors that we have around the area. They might be concerned that there's not one, down the road from your house, but they are extremely sensitive pieces of equipment. We can tell when trees are being loud. We can feel the earth moving. They are incredible. And like I said, they can sense earthquakes from extremely far away. If someone's walking up next to it, they'll be able to sense it. They don't need to be exactly pinpointed right next to where you are. You will need 4 sensors to pinpoint the magnitude, the epicenter, and the intensity of an earthquake before an alert would go out to other people.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that public information? Like, could I go on some site and see the?
Yes, I can. Well, that is a great. To my next slide is that we are part of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network, and it's us, University of Washington, and then paired with the U.S. Geological Survey. So we operate in conjunction with both of those institutions for the Advanced National Seismic System. So between us, we've deployed over 700 sensors, seismic sensors, throughout Oregon and Washington. There are a lot more sensors in Washington because they have volcanoes that are active that we don't necessarily have. And And 209 of them informed shake alert earthquake early warning, which I'll also talk about a little bit. But if you go onto the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network's website, which is just pnsn.org, it has a map of all of the earthquake sensors, as well as all of the regional earthquakes that have happened recently, from very low magnitude to the largest magnitude. Someone's taking a picture, so I'll let that happen. So I briefly mentioned shake alert. I hope you all know this. You look like a smart crowd, but I do have a really fast pop quiz. What do you do when you receive an earthquake early warning or feel shaking? A, sit down and twiddle our thumbs. B, drop cover, hold on. C, evacuate immediately. I did tell you the answer at the beginning. Yeah. So we're gonna think about this. Well, we will talk about that also. So the answer is not sit around and twiddle our thumbs. I hope all of you knew that. You also, surprisingly, do not want to evacuate immediately. The thing that you want to do is drop, cover, and hold on. There's been some misconceptions that you want to evacuate somewhere immediately, but when the ground is moving, you don't know where your next step is going to be. And a lot of injuries that happen during earthquakes happen when people are trying to evacuate. That being said, after shaking is finished, please evacuate as safely as possible. If you find yourself on the coast, go to high ground. If you're outside, stay away from trees, anything that could fall down on you, but try and stay still, bend over and cover your neck. And I do have a little image of what you can do if you, when it's possible to go under a table, if you're using a walker, a wheelchair, or a cane. Because everyone has different mobility needs, and you'll never know when those needs are going to happen, and you also never know when the next big one is going to happen. It's really important that we recognize that shake alert is not earthquake prediction. Earthquake prediction right now with science is not possible. We would have to have a lot of sensors off the coast and in the subduction zone, and that is very, very expensive, and we don't really like funding research nowadays. So it's hard. Maybe one day we'll get there. So what shake alert does is when an earthquake happens, we have two waves. We have the P wave and the S wave. The P wave, the primary wave, is the first wave that comes out. And humans don't typically feel the P wave, but our sensors are so smart that they feel the P wave before the secondary S wave comes, which is what you would typically feel when an earthquake happens. So when those four sensors get triggered by a P wave from an earthquake, they work incredibly fast, where they will detect the epicenter, the magnitude, and the intensity that you would feel the earthquake at. So that's why we don't get earthquake alerts from the earthquake that happened in Russia, because it was so far away and we didn't feel it. So all of that will happen within seconds. When the Cape Mendocino earthquake happened in Northern California last year, in December, that was actually the first time that shake alert was triggered in Oregon. We don't really consider ourselves a part of earthquake country like California does, and areas of Washington. But Southern Oregonians in Ashland had 30 seconds of advanced warning before they started to feel shaking. But it really just depends on where you are.
Question.
Mhm.
Is there a magnitude threshold?
There is, and I will get to that.
We're just too advanced.
I knew you guys were smart. So these are different ways to get alerts from the shake alert system. And as you can see, the magnitude that is for each of those. So we have the WIA alerts, the wireless emergency alerts, and that would happen at a 5.0 magnitude earthquake at a 4.5 intensity scale. I'm going to be honest, sometimes the magnitude of the earthquake doesn't matter as much as the intensity is going to matter. Because if you're not close to an earthquake, it could be a 9.0 earthquake, but you're in Eastern Oregon, so your intensity is really low because you're not going to feel it. Whereas if you're on the coast, you might start feeling shaking before you actually get an alert because it's so fast. And it might tell you 1 to 2 seconds after you start to feel shaking and give you that earthquake alert. But, again, we don't consider ourselves a part of earthquake country. So as soon as I'm getting that alert, as soon as I'm feeling shaking, I'm dropping, covering, and holding on. There are a few apps that you can get, the MyShake app, but now I would recommend that honestly everyone has it integrated into their phone systems, and I'll show you how to use that in a second. But Shake Alert is also, as the technology has grown, it's being integrated into buildings, infrastructure. As I mentioned with the Medford Community School District, their PA system throughout the school has Shake Alert integrated into it. So it went through the entire school saying an earthquake has begun. You will feel shaking, drop, cover, hold on, protect yourself. It was also integrated into their health center. So no one was getting scalpeled or transferred before they would start to feel shaking, which can be life-saving. What it can also do is, like I said, with the elevators, it can bring elevators back down to ground floor. It can drop drawbridges on bridges so no one is getting onto them. One of my favorite tools from the machine-to-machine technology is that it'll open fire station bay doors. So, you know, when shaking happens, the foundation might not be in tip-top shape, and you might not be able to open that door after an earthquake happens, but if it's open before they start to feel shaking, emergency vehicles can get out much, much faster. So those are just a few of the machine-to-machine technologies. To make sure that your phone is receiving earthquake alerts, you'll go to the notification settings in your settings and look for wireless emergency alerts on Android, and then scroll for iPhone, which is what I'm more knowledgeable about. You'll scroll all the way to the bottom of your notifications, and you should see enhanced safety alerts, and that will give you a notification at a 4.5 intensity that you might feel some shaking, and then at a 5 intensity that you should drop, cover, hold on, protect yourself, which is also how Android is set up. But this has just recently been pushed out on iPhone. It's been on Android for a while, and we've found that not everyone, it was supposed to automatically be turned on when anyone updated their phone, and that wasn't always happening. So I would love if you guys turned that on. Just
Where is it on an iPhone?
if you go to your settings and then notifications and then scroll all the way to the bottom, it should say enhanced safety alerts.
Oh, am I ready on?
Perfect, great. It should be on with your phone, but I just want to double check and make sure.
We haven't had any notifications lately, have we?
No, because we haven't had any earthquakes.
Okay, I was thinking I missed one.
No, yeah, it's just good to have it on and make sure that you're prepared when those rounds.
Do you know anything about the imminent threats alert?
That isn't directly related to us. I have mine turned on. I would like to know of any imminent threats. Perfect.
Everything.
Beautiful.
Wait, what'd you say?
Looked at the instructions.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
Let's see. Oh, and this one last thing on this page, it's not just in Oregon either. If you're in California, Oregon, or Washington, you will receive Shake Alert earthquake early warning notifications, which is a really awesome thing. The question that we always get asked is how much advance notification will I get? And it depends. I cannot predict when the next earthquake will be. I cannot predict where you will be when it happens. I cannot predict how the fault line is going to erupt. So it could start off the coast of Yachats and go left, north, and south at the same time. It could start in British Columbia and work its way down. It could start in Northern California and work its way up. And all of those different systems and wow, I'm fumbling over my words. All of those different scenarios will amount in different alert notification time. Everyone thinks that it's going to happen on a Sunday afternoon. They're coming home from church. They're coming home from getting their groceries ready to go home. And you really just do not know. It could happen at 4 a.m. in the middle of winter. So it is important to be prepared for if the big one happens. When the big one happens. What it's going to look like here. There's a big map of Oregon and the intensity of what we would be feeling after an earthquake. And then I've zoomed in on this area. The intensity that we're going to be feeling is around a 7 to 8 intensity. And what that means, I have it written out, is with a 7 to 8, the 7, it's going to frighten a lot of people. People are going to find it really hard to move during that time, and that's why we drop cover and hold on. We don't try and move during that time. Heavy furniture is going to be overturned. Damage is negligible to seismically resilient and retrofit buildings, but to unretrofit buildings, there's going to be some damage. With an 8 intensity, it's going to be considerable tree damage. You're going to find it hard to stand. Heavy furniture is going to move really easily, and damage could even happen to seismically retrofit and resilient buildings, just not as much as to non-retrofit buildings. When the intensity 7 starts, that's when we're going to start seeing landslides, trees falling over, and liquefaction. Does anyone know what liquefaction is?
When rock turns into liquid.
Yes, basically when rock turns into liquid. For those who don't know, if you can picture yourself going on the beach or on the coast, and you're going right where the sand turns a little dark because it's been integrating with water, and you rub your feet around a little bit and your feet start to go down into the sand, that's what happens to solid soil, basically. So there are images from the Tohoku earthquake that happened in Japan, where a car is literally it's vertical in the ground because of the liquefaction that happened. That's honestly going to be the biggest issue around here versus landslide potential. The map on the bottom right is the landslide potential and intensity. And if there is some potential, but it's not around here. Why the liquefaction hazard is higher is because of where we are. We're right by the river, and that is where sediment, soil is mixing with that water, and it's not hard bedrock that everything is being built on. But if you want to, look where your house is, look where your friend's house is, you can look up the Oregon HazView map. And it has a lot of other map layers that you can add to it and just see your hazard in your home. HazView, HazVU. Yes.
I got a question. Does the duration play as big a role as the intensity?
Yes. The longer it is, the more likely that seismically retrofit buildings will come under stress, and non-seismically retrofit buildings will come under stress. There's an engineering, they have to set it up for safety for 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes of how long shaking can happen and for you to be safe in a seismically retrofit building. But it's anticipated to be around 2 to 3 minutes of shaking, if it is as large as the last earthquake that was happening. But if it happens, tomorrow, it's not going to be as intense as if it happens in another 100 years, and that tension is continuing to build up.
I just thought of something for the people that are on Zoom. Could you repeat the question next time?
Yes, totally.
Thanks.
I'm also really just gonna quickly go over our wildfire detection cameras, because what people tend to forget after an earthquake is that there are going to be multiple hazards going on, like landslide, like a rockfall, avalanches, but also wildfires, because when electrical companies have their towers fall over and electricity is going up or gas is being released and something happens, wildfires are very prominent. So what we have done is we have over 70 wildfire detection cameras throughout the state. We use established infrastructure where we can. It's again a little bit hard to see, but on the map we have one in Crestview, and then one or two in UO's campus on UO's highest building, looking over the area. They're also not just used for wildfires. The bottom right photo is in Vail, Oregon, when flooding was happening, so they can be used for multiple purposes. They can see 30 miles during the day and 40 at night with near infrared, and every 2 minutes they will take a 360-degree image where an AI will detect smoke during the day and environmental changes at night, and send that to a 24/7 monitoring center where a human says, yes, there's smoke, or no, there's not. When smoke is positively detected, they'll geolocate it and send it out to firefighters, emergency managers, utilities companies, people who have specific credentialed logins, so that they can get boots on the ground as quickly as possible in those events. which might not be super interesting to the average Joe, but all of our cameras are also publicly available on Watch Duty. If you don't have Watch Duty, I would highly recommend getting the app. It is also a website that you can visit. It's just watchduty.org. Or if you just Google Watch Duty, it'll show up. So all of our cameras are available to view on there. It's really an amazing platform. During wildfire season, they'll tell you any red flag warnings, active wildfire perimeters, evacuation notices. You can turn on the AQI. And then if you turn to the live wildfire camera map layer, you can watch any of our cameras with up to a 6-hour time lapse on them as well. And if you click on any of those fires that you'll see, historically, you'll see images from our cameras that will show a fire escalating or de-escalating, which can help inform you on any emergency decisions that you want to make. And that is what I have to share with you guys. I hope I didn't go over my time. And I'll be here to answer questions at the end. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
And now we have Althea Sullivan, who's the acting emergency manager for the City of Eugene.
Well, I'll start by introducing myself. Thank you so much. It's good to be here and see a group of people spending time on a Monday evening gathering despite whatever else you did for the day. And it's fun to see some familiar faces here as well. I think that was a great overview of a hazard perspective. I'm hoping to provide you with a little bit of information of, okay, scary, where do we go from there? Okay, so who's lived through a natural disaster and survived it? Okay, who lived here during 2020? Keep your hands up if you lived through the natural disaster. So who lived here in 2024 in the winter? Did anyone, you can put your hands down. Did anyone not raise your hand? Okay, so you all actually have lived through a federally declared natural disaster in our area. I would question kind of how comfortable were you during that event? You know, did you have the things you wanted, and take some of that perspective going forward as I talk about this. Up here is a photo I like to show at the start of a lot of presentations. This is showing the conditions on 126 during the Holiday Farm fires. So just as a mindset perspective, things look different during a disaster with respect to roadways, with respect to travel, than they do day to day. That was traffic evacuating out of the area. The trucks going in could have been some folks going up to help with the fire, or could have been people that couldn't evacuate immediately and were going home to get a loved one or a pet or do something else. I don't know the story on those, but I'm trying to find out because I've got that question in the presentation. So if any of you were the truck driver, talk to me. So I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about community risks generally. We'll talk about evacuation and go bags, and then we'll talk some about 2 weeks ready. I know I was asked to come here and present a little bit about earthquake. I know that's the main focus here, but I want to give you some tools that you can apply more broadly and give you something to work on, because the earthquake could happen during any of our lifetimes, and it sounds like it's better if it happens sooner than later. So maybe we're now pro earthquake, but maybe we would rather it not happen. Okay, so talking a little bit about community risks, we can generally classify the different risks we see for our community in 2 groups. We have our natural occurring risks, and then we also have human caused risks. So I'll let you look at that, and I'm just going to talk about a few of those. This list is not exhaustive. There's of course other risks and other things that we see as a community, and as time goes on, we see risks emerging that we didn't think would be a risk. So wildfires, we're seeing more and more intense fires each season with the speed and rate that those wildfires grow. Did anyone see the Butte fire that happened this last summer? So we actually had fire in Spencer's Butte that was pretty prominent on a day with a little bit of rain, which was not, typical if you think back in history. Earthquakes, we heard some about that. Does anyone know what our most, or let me phrase that differently. Does anyone know what our most likely natural hazard is in this community based on our natural hazard mitigation plan?
Flooding.
Smoke, flooding, fire. Our top hazard is actually weather events. So winter weather. We have a fairly significant winter weather event every 3 to 5 years. We can count on that in this area. That was the ice storm most recently. This winter, I want to knock on wood as I say this, I think we're maybe not going to have that event, but there's still time left. So that's kind of our most frequent event, followed closely by wildfire, which I know someone said, and then we actually added smoke incursion to our most recent natural hazard mitigation plan update, because we recognize that we're more often, at least today, impacted by smoke in the valley than we are having wildfire burning here, and a lot of that comes from a staffed fire department that can get to those fires quickly. Going over to human-caused disasters a little bit, and you'll notice between the two I have flooding on both sides. So natural flooding, that's usually what we have in the rivers. We have a lot of rainfall, a lot of snow melt. We see the rivers come up, but we actually see flooding occur in an urban area based on how much pavement we have and where that water is flowing. We can also see flooding that comes from a dam breaking somewhere and the water that comes out of that. So some of these hazards cross. Urban wildfires or urban conflagration is another one of those hazards where we can see the built environment. So the materials we use for our homes, our street systems, the things that we all collect around the outside of our home that maybe we should get rid of, impacting the potential magnitude of that hazard or that event for us. There's a few others on there: terrorism, cyber attacks, hazardous materials spills. We have a few railways that go through the Eugene and Springfield area that have hazardous materials going through our community every day. So in talking about risks, actually, let's see if I want to go back. So in talking about risks, any one of those events can impact us in the short term, kind of an interim term, and then a long term. Short term is usually something that happens quickly and we're able to deal with it and put it out quickly. So you could think of, fire that occurs over a few blocks in our community. We're going to be able to suppress that fire, put that out. The impact to the greater community is over within 24 hours. But for the people who live there, they're going to have week-long impacts, and they're probably going to have impacts for multiple years from that event. Talking about the Cascadia earthquake, that event, short term, we're going to feel some shaking. Once that shaking stops, there's going to be some immediate impacts, but for a lot of the impacts we see, it's actually going to be in the months and in the years. We're talking about a new normal. Some of the infrastructure we're used to seeing in the community, some of the things that we're used to doing may look different in the future as we recover from that event. The other thing, and I might have missed it, but I don't know if the aftershocks were mentioned. So yes, there's that primary event that we would expect, but we also expect some shaking to continue over, it could be a couple of days or it could be a couple of weeks where we have some smaller earthquakes that are still disruptive. And the main point I want to make with this is that initially following any event, our needs for response are not going to be equal to our response capacity. We see that every single day in our community with our police response to things, our fire response, public works response. So that's someone calling 911 because they don't have things to resolve the issue there in front of them. It's small scale. Our first responders do a great job showing up to that. When we start talking about disaster, we start talking about significant events, that's going to be exacerbated, and it's unlikely that we will have the number of police, fire, public works responders available to actually respond to the need in the community. So that leaves you all with a choice. Do you stay or do you go? And that kind of can be used as a framework for two approaches to different types of hazards. So I've grouped these. And of course, not all inclusive. I mentioned a lot of other hazards, but there are hazards that we can reasonably move away from. And there are hazards where we can expect to need to hunker down. So wildfire, if you can get away from a wildfire, I absolutely would. Flood is another one of those things. A hazardous materials spill, if we know the wind's blowing north and you live to the north of that spill, I would want to leave that hazard. So those are some examples of hazards you would be evacuating from. When it comes to things like an earthquake, an ice storm, or potentially a cyber attack that impacts street lights, infrastructure, the GPS systems on our phone, could be widespread, could be more limited. Going out and just touring around your neighborhood or other places may not actually do a whole lot to help you if you're trying to leave from that hazard. So, you know, if your GPS system's down and you primarily use GPS, you'll eventually reach a point where you're lost, but that hazard may not have resolved itself. With respect to earthquake, liquefaction was mentioned. We also might see bridges fall. We might see trees come across roads following that event. If you hop in your car, throw your, family, pets in there, some food, and you start driving around, you're probably just going to be touring our community locally until you run out of fuel. So those are the hazards where being prepared to shelter, being prepared to be comfortable can be really important. We saw that in the 2024 ice storm as well, the number of people going outside and making an effort to walk somewhere, go somewhere, and then falling and breaking something. That was a really prevalent 911 call during that event. So I would think about hazards in kind of these two ways, and think, can I get away from this with certainty, or should I be thinking about hunkering down and being comfortable? Question?
I always worry about and wonder about natural gas and what happens, like in an earthquake, to those big natural gas pipes that are in every single street.
Yeah.
My house, and to my house.
So
My house.
I'll repeat that for folks online because I think it sounded like that was a useful thing to do. Question was about natural gas piping undergrounds in homes. Recommendations around that would be, if you have natural gas at your home, get yourself a shutoff key. Or a wrench that can be adjusted to shut that off. I would maybe call and consult with your natural gas company about how to safely do that. The other part is there are requirements for infrastructure for different shut off and break points. So depending on how something is piped together and put together, it should stop the flow in some places. I'll also say there are locations where it won't stop the flow, and so we could expect some piece of natural gas. I know fires were also mentioned in the previous presentation. It's not unreasonable to expect some level of fires associated with natural gas following an event, but the exact where it breaks, what bends, how that impact actually happened is a little bit challenging to model and predict. The best advice I could give you is know where it is around your home, know how to shut it off, and then know how to move away from it if you know you have that near your home. So figure out where that line is.
Yeah, I had heard that it's best not to shut off the gas unless you smell gas, because it could be weeks before, tens of thousands of people can get it turned back on again. What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's an important distinction. So the clarification there was shutting off natural gas or leaving it on. I heard the first question really about this leaking scenario where you're smelling it, you're noticing it. In that case, absolutely getting that shut off. But yeah, to that point, if, following an earthquake, you don't think that line is damaged, so figure out where it is around your home. If you look at it after the shaking stops and it looks fine, you can't smell it, leaving that on, it would be a reasonable thing to do. But again, you know, there's some risk with that, and it's going to be a bit of a personal decision on that day. I would also expect, you know, there's the potential for a break further up the line. So, you know, considering some alternate power sources or other options would be a good thing to do too. Another question about?
Would the gas company alert customers of a potential break during a disaster, or should we not count on?
Yeah. So the question was about whether a natural gas company would alert people following an event. I would say that it's probably in the best interest of that company to share information to both keep their product in the line and get things back online for their customers as soon as possible. So large scale event, the city, the county, the state, we're going to be talking to those natural gas providers and getting information about how's your system doing? Do we know where it's safe to use it? Do we know where it's not? And working to distribute that information. All of that related to this though is there's going to be a period of time where we won't be able to give you the best information because we just won't know. So kind of going back to this, having that framework in your mind of, is this a hazard you can get all the way away from, or is this something where you might want to hunker down for a little bit? So for hazards that you want to get away from, there's a couple things you can do to give yourself some more warning around that. Who signed up for lane alerts? That's pretty good. If you're not signed up for lane alerts and you have a smartphone with you and you want to scan that QR code, I'm going to talk here for a minute. I would recommend doing that. So lane alerts is an opt-in alert system. So you can choose to put your information into that system about where you live, where you work. That's a system that on the back end, the emergency management community, first responder community, we can push out alerts through that system. It's different from the WIA system that was mentioned earlier, but it is another way for us to share information for you in the case of an event that we have notice for. The other thing that's on this slide is the level 1, level 2, level 3 system that we have in Oregon. I think you've probably seen it at this point if you've been through a wildfire season. The key takeaway I want you to leave tonight with is that it doesn't always go level 1, level 2, level 3. It's more likely that you will only get a level 3 go now alert unless there's a very large fire near you. So think back to the Holiday Farm fires. They had a fire meteorologist that was part of that incident management team that's doing modeling, that's doing fire predictive pieces to figure out in the next 24 hours, where is that fire likely to go? In the next 48 hours, where is that fire likely to go? In those cases, you can expect that level 1, level 2, but being prepared for, you may only get 1 notice or you may get no notice for an event is a piece there. I'll pause here a second. I think we have one more person scanning that. Okay, if it didn't work, I can give you some information after this. So with that context of you only may get a level 3 go now, it's really important to do some work packing for evacuation before you're making that decision to get in the car and go. We sometimes see post-event or post-interviews with people following something that they took time going around their home, looking for different things. And so the recommendation with respect to packing for evacuation is a 72-hour bag. They're also called go bags or a grab and go bag. That's the things that are going to keep you and your family and pets as comfortable as you can be for about 72 hours. It should be something that's small enough that you can pick it up and take it with you. The big things that you're going to want to have in there are some water and some food. Prescription. So if you have a prescription that's necessary for you day to day, including eyeglasses or contact prescriptions, I would recommend having a conversation with your physician about whether you can get an extra to keep in that bag or coming up with a plan to go through that. Phones, personal computers, chargers, knowing where those things are and having them collected. A lot of us keep personal information on those that we're going to go looking for in an event. So I'd recommend having thought through how to get those things. Plastic is the next thing on here. So how are you going to pay for things if you're evacuating? Have a credit card, have a debit card, but we also know that our reader systems, and you've probably experienced it when you were just trying to buy a coffee and the barista had the thing and it wasn't working. Carry some cash as well. That would be a recommendation there. And then if you have really important documents, so photo identification, birth certificate, having some plan to collect those things. There are also a lot of digital platforms today that you can upload those things to the cloud in and keep them there. You can make your own choices about safety and security with that, but there are some good things there. And then finally, those pictures and irreplaceable items. So if it's something that came from your great-great-grandma that you're not going to leave the house without, know where it is, know how to get it or keep it with that go bag during wildfire season. And then since we're talking about earthquakes some tonight as well, this is kind of that you're going to shelter in place. So it's the drop, cover, hold on perspective, but that's also that mental framework. If we have an ice storm, if there's some other event that you're going to be sheltering from. When you're preparing to shelter in place, and I'm going to oversimplify this here, and then I'm going to give you a book that you can spend the next 8 weeks or so with. So take all of this with this is high level. This is, things that you can go work on following this, but if you want to take a deep dive on it, you can work on that later too. So the first thing with sheltering is making sure you can take care of yourself. So having food, having water. People invest in the different meals that come in bags or boxes. I would get something that doesn't have an expiration date or has a really far off expiration date that you actually like to eat. So if you buy the budget one, it could just be the scrambled eggs that you're not going to enjoy during that time, and you might feel more inclined to go out in the ice storm and try and make it somewhere. I would really encourage having food that you're going to want to eat. Water is another thing. So there's a lot of different options for how you store water, but the recommendation is about 1 gallon of water per person per day. So that's a pretty large amount of water to have. Medication. So again, if there's something that you need day to day, having that available. And then hygiene is going to be another big one. So has anyone seen the bucket systems? Couple hands. Yeah, so there's a lot of great resources. The books walk it through, but right, if the toilets aren't flushing, what do you do with that waste? And so having a plan at your home for how you're going to use buckets to manage that. I will say our wastewater team for the city, and they work for Springfield, Eugene, and the county as well. They're doing a lot of planning around this right now and thinking about different ways to collect waste. It's going to be very tempting to just put that in your backyard somewhere. I did hear you. I would really encourage you to try and follow some of the best practices, because foodborne, waterborne illnesses, we see those pop up. Usually it takes about 2 weeks for that to incubate. And so if we're all using the restroom in our backyard, there may be some impacts to that are less pleasant than the initial impacts there. So there's some great resources. Come up with that plan, keep the supplies for that on hand. And then finally, comfort. So I started this by asking who's lived through a natural disaster or event. Just reflect back on that. Think about those things that made you more comfortable during that. I would have those. When it comes to your family, having some form of communication plan. So I know we have some radio folks in this room. That's a fantastic thing to look at, consider, get involved with. If we're not able to communicate out of the area, and you have a really large family that lives on, say, the East Coast, having one person somewhere that knows you might call them to say, hey, I'm okay, I'm just sitting around here. If you get that opportunity to make one call out or one text out or get someone on a ham radio to help with a message, I would consider talking through that. Same thing goes if you have children, family members you disperse during the day. Think about, do you have a way of communicating if you're at work when an earthquake happens? What's your plan to get home or to meet in another location? Work through some of those things with your family or those that you live with. There's not a one size fits all, but talking about it can make that process more smooth. Supplies are going to be the same thing for yourself. Don't forget your pets in that. They really like snacks as well and water as well. And then home. So there's two different things to think about with that. There's preventative. So that's, make sure you have earthquake straps, make sure that you're weatherizing your home, looking at the things you can do to make that structure itself more resilient and habitable for you in a variety of different types of events. And then also having some things to repair that home if something comes up. So that natural gas line, if you start smelling that, having that tool, knowing how to turn that off. And then finally, which you're actually all doing already tonight by being here, is the community piece of this. I heard a mention earlier of gardens and food. That's something where post-earthquake, if you know that your neighbor has carrots and they're willing to share those, that might be a really great thing to be able to do. So talk with your neighbors, get to know them. Again, there would be a period of time following a large earthquake where first responders are going to be really busy putting out fires, clearing roads so we can get additional help coming our way, and dealing with all of the things that pop up and are immediately urgent. If you are generally okay and at your home, one of the best things you could do is just sit tight for a little bit and not put additional stress on that system. So there's an even more oversimplified, that's your checklist to take away from this evening. And then at the back of the room, I do have the 2 weeks ready booklets from the state of Oregon. So I told you if you want to spend 8 weeks working on this, you can. There's some really great information there. There's checklists there. I would encourage you to start small, start with what you can do. Maybe just pick a random page of the book and do that. Don't get so overwhelmed by having to complete all of it that you don't get through it. So I think I have enough for everyone there. If someone's doesn't get one, we can follow up later.
eWeb is doing.
Yeah, and
they're doing month by month.
yeah, eWeb also has a great program out right now. So if you're a customer there, that's another good one to follow. So yeah, lots of different programs. I don't have another slide after this, so I'll actually just leave this up and then reach out if there's questions or anything. I don't know which hands I saw first.
I just would be curious, at one point the city of Eugene was going to be coordinating through the CERT program, some B2 weeks ready training. Is there any?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So the Community Emergency Response Team is a program that's sponsored by the cities of Eugene and Springfield. We're working right now with the steering committee of that team to find kind of those next year focuses that they want to work on. And if 2 weeks ready is part of that, then we'll be teeing them up to go out and have a lot more than just me coming and talking about this. And I know, some are enthusiastic to get out there, and we really appreciate the help taking that out to the community. Maybe we'll start at the back and then come this way.
If you do test an activation, do you need your house locked or unlocked?
That's a good question. So one thing, and I didn't talk about it earlier, but I was thrilled to hear that these went out in the community. I know that was something that came out of Lane County Emergency Management. We helped pass out some of these in the city. These can be really great tools for first responders to see that you're either okay or you need help. thinking about it from this perspective is, if it says help, this is kind of an invitation into your home for whatever reason. So if you had to evacuate, but say there was someone that couldn't go with you, or you had a pet that was in there that you're hoping someone was able to check on or get to, maybe leaving the help there and your house unlocked, wouldn't be a bad idea. You know, if you're okay, if you're locking that door when you leave, I think that's all right too. I don't know that there's a hard and fast rule with it. I will say, law enforcement, sheriff's office try to do patrols in areas where people have been asked to leave to keep things safe. But I do know that every year I feel like there's a couple news stories about looting. So unless you have a reason to leave your door unlocked, I would probably lock it, but I'd mostly focus on, I wouldn't go back to make sure it's locked. Is that a murky enough answer for the question? It depends. Yeah, coming this way. Yes.
So here in River Road, many of us are very close to the rail yard. And some of the emergency preparations that have been passed focused on threats that could emerge from the rail yard. We, at Northwest, put on a chlorine gas simulation in 2022, if I'm correct. And so, since you had on the board there kind of the hazmat, it had me thinking about that. And a few weeks ago, I think there was a derailment in the rail yard, and I lived pretty close by, and I didn't know about it until 3 days later, and it's less than a mile away, so I was kind of surprised. So I wanted to know if you could speak to how emergency management, the city kind of thinks about the rail yard, what the communication looks like, what the relationship is, so that we have comfort that that very high industrial area, which has all kinds of hazards, top of mind for this community.
Yeah, great question. I'll repeat part of that for folks online. So it was about how does City of Eugene look at rail hazards and the risks we could see there for the folks living in proximity. And I think that the simplest answer I could give you to that question was there was a lot of phone calls that happened right after that. So it is top of mind for our responding fire crews. We do have a hazmat team with Eugene Springfield Fire that can get there and contain that hazard. My understanding from that event is there wasn't a suspicion of something hazardous coming out of those rail cars, and it was actually contained to rail property as well. So there's a lot of phone calls that happen when something happens with responding crews, whether that's law enforcement, fire department, public works, kind of going through that. Do we need to evacuate people, or do we expect this to keep going? That one, it was ultimately decided, no, we don't have a reason to start asking people to leave. Yeah. And then I think we're coming here next.
I had a couple questions, kind of similar to his. I'm assuming you mentioned that hazard and mitigation plan. It's probably a multi-jurisdictional plan. So do you feel all the agencies and whoever's involved in that are prepared for an earthquake at this point? Because, you know, we have to do things at home. I'm just wondering, do you feel like all the agencies that are involved are also prepared at this point, as far as much as they can be? That's one question. And then related to that is, if there is an earthquake and we lose communication and we're all sheltering in place, what's going to be the communication if we don't have communication to know that someone's coming at some point to check on us on our street, or, you know, how's that going to happen? Yes.
Yeah. So for folks online, I heard two questions there. The first was, you know, how are governments and other organizations preparing for something like the Cascadia earthquake, and are we prepared? I would say preparation is an ongoing process. We learn new things about hazards every year, you know, with respect to our natural hazard mitigation plan. That's updated every few years, in part because we learn new things. And so we're constantly looking at our infrastructure. We're having conversations with the emergency managers, be that with the county, City of Springfield, some of our utility partners that have those managers in their program, and talking about what we can do. But I also don't want to give the impression that there's not a role kind of for people to take in the self-agency in that, because we can model it all we want and we can think we know what's going to happen and think we're prepared, but we haven't gone through it. So the example too there is the fire department responds to fires frequently. They generally know what to expect from those, but sometimes it looks different than it did from the last one. And so I think it's a really dynamic thing, and it's hard to say, you know, we're going to get it right and knock it out of the park if that happens. But I can say that, you know, there's a lot of people that take it very seriously and spend a lot of time working on it. The second question that I heard there, can you repeat that second one for me?
It was more about it, our communication went out, so we could use our cell phones or something. How do we know in a big earthquake, like what's going on, I guess, or is someone coming to rescue us?
Great question. So the second question was about communications. How do you know what's going on? I would encourage you to talk to some of the ham folks in this room. They have built a really intricate system with MCOM and some of their different nets and practices. They also have some guidance on how to talk to emergency operation centers. And so they would have some great information there and the good resources. And from the city perspective, you know, we certainly hope to partner with them following the event. Yeah, we'll go back here.
So on the steer go and which direction to go, on the lane alert slide at the bottom, it said if the internet and everything is out, this won't work. So back in the old civil events era, there were broadcast radio stations that were certain ones designated to listen to. Do the local emergency response organizations like yours still have a relationship with any local broadcast stations that have emergency generators, or what's the fallback besides your fancy phones and stuff?
Yeah. So the question was about if the phones go down and we can't use any of our fancy new technology, how do we broadcast something out? The answer is yes. There is a larger broadcast system that can be used for, and it will go county-wide at that point. So we would be broadcasting. There's 3 channels that you can hear that on. KLCC is one of those. Do you have the other 2 off the top of your head? Okay. Yeah, those I can look and I'll follow up with Laura just to make sure that I get those right. But I know KLCC is one of those stations. I have it in some other presentations. I just didn't bring it in this one. So you asked me a great question. Anything else with that, or?
No, I didn't say that. Radio, having an emergency
Yep.
radio.
Yeah, so NOAA radios are great as well, and you would hear information on those too. They're tied into the same nationwide system for alerting. And then I think there was a question at the back.
I know that there are some organizations that are trying to develop what they're calling respite centers. I was here at a meeting a few months ago when they said Howard L. Veterans was an emergency shelter site. They have food, water, something else. And I know that Lane Parks and Recreation is money after our ice storm just to make Bobkeeper a respite center. The problem for that is when during the ice storm, nobody could get into the respite centers. So that's one question, like how is that money coming into play? And if you ask anybody who just suffered with the ice storm, communication was non-existent. I mean, nobody could drive down the street and yell, "Are you okay?" Because we could drive down the street. So we asked repeatedly at our meetings, and they were just like, "Oh, we just don't know yet." Okay, that's
Yeah, so the question was about kind of community gathering places and respite centers following an event. So yes, that's an ongoing planning process. I think some of you have heard about the emergency water stations from eWeb as well. So there are plans for different centers that could be established and shelters. However, I would really encourage you to see what you can do at home, going back to that ice storm that was given in the question too. If you don't have to go down South 70th in Springfield, that's probably ideal following that event. I want to kind of keep us on time here. I don't know where we're at for other agenda items. I could probably take one more question.
We can take 2 or 3 more questions, but I'm wondering if Autumn wants to come up in case any other questions.
And if you do need police, just remember to sign on your way out if you didn't on your way in.
Oh, well, please take the books and thank you so much for listening to me talk for a while this evening.
One more thing I'm gonna put in the back is a sign-up sheet if you might be interested in joining our emergency prep team. If you're not sure, then sign up and you can talk to us.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I think I'm gonna go Lori and then I'll come back that way.
So this is a question I've asked before. That occurred to me when I was taking the orientation for some 2 weeks, then not the full training, it's orientation. And the question came up, you know, certain disasters require different levels of evacuation. So maybe if it's flooding, I might want to go away from the river. And if it's wildfire, I might want to go towards the river. Does the city have any kind of site that would help someone determine an evacuation route for particular types of disasters?
Yeah, so question for folks online is about where do you go to determine a pre-identified evacuation route? So I assume that you all travel a little bit in Oregon and go to the coast. Know the tsunami area. Tsunamis are a great example of a hazard that we can model every time until you go that way, which is uphill, and then you'll be safe from it. When it comes to more dynamic hazards, and especially those that move, it becomes really challenging through that emergency alert system, through broadcast systems, through law enforcement in patrol cars going door to door. We're going to give you the best information we can for how to evacuate, but I would also encourage you all to use your life experience, use your senses, and make a decision for yourself in that event too. So I don't have it's always going to be this way or it's always going to be that way. It's kind of a feel it out and look for the best information that you can.
Particular resources.
There's not going to be a one size fits all. You know, I can say getting to larger streets is probably a good choice to make, and then going to large gathering places. So the parking lot at Valley River Center, the Lane County Fairgrounds, Bob Kiefer Center, Lane Community College, those large areas where you are evacuating by car where you could go and sit there would likely be places to go, but I can also think of things that could occur where it's not the best place to go to. I think the next question was back there.
How do earthquakes, or how do earthquakes and fire go hand in hand?
You want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. Beautiful answer. That's a great answer. I mean, additionally, there is the risk of, you know, natural gas pipelines breaking. Something can light on fire during that. Critical infrastructure can also light on fire. There's a lot of different scenarios in which it could happen. There are a lot of utilities companies now who are integrating emergency power shutoffs when they are at a certain fire risk, so that if something were to fall over, it wouldn't catch on fire, hopefully. So that's something that some utilities companies are doing. But yeah, ground movement, things fall over, things catch a flame. You just multi-hazardous.
Okay, I'll take one more question. I think we'll go, you just asked him. So you haven't asked me a question yet.
I would just suggest we add to the hazard risk, the gasoline tank farm on Prairie Road.
Yeah. Yep, that is known. And we do have, it's not in our national hazard mitigation plan because it's not a natural hazard, but it's in our hazard vulnerability
That's
assessment.
actually being addressed by the state of Oregon and Reading Northwest is on the notification list for those things, and I distribute it to the 3 councils when we get that. So it's actually being legislated that they have a window that they need to retro their tanks.
Yeah, thanks for that.
What are we talking about?
The Kinder Morgan tanks on Prairie Road. They're what they started. And what are they starting? Mostly fuel.
And they're during an earthquake, they're all of the tanks. The ones in Portland are, there's a huge tower right on the river. That is huge jeopardy for Portland. We have Kinder Morgan and maybe some others along that strip. So we are ready. It's on the notification list for those actions, and I distribute that to 3 organizations that we work with, River Road, Santa Clara, on that when we get updates on those action plans.
All right. Well, thank you all for letting me come and talk and for the good questions. And I would just encourage you to check off some of those items, get a book and go on a deep dive and talk with your community. It sounds like there's a response team you can.
Yeah, join us, absolutely. Before you guys go, Misty is just gonna ask a couple questions, but before that, I just want to thank Althea.
Really quick, who can go home right now and grab your bag? Just show of hands. 4 or 5? Yeah, so now you know what your homework is, right? And also another homework for you, I want you to think of 5 neighbors in your area that you can walk to and you feel safe, knock on their door, or you to have a conversation with them and let them know that you're going to check on them in case of emergency, and vice versa, okay? And then also we want to know if you all have any ideas of topics that our emergency can cover over the next couple of months, that we can have another great group like this. So please feel free to let us know what you're interested in, what your concerns are, and we can find experts in the area that might, give us some fabulous presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.